Markus to talk about things.
It was a quiet night. February 4th, 2013. In fact.
Except for the hecklers.
Yes. No, it was last night. It was last night going on midnight. I realized, shoot, I need a hangman. Okay.
Is that big enough text? Should I get bigger?
She can control the font size. Big. She can make it
I have
little.
my little powers.
So RESTful API, and the app, as data started getting more data loaded on it, it got slower and slower and slower. So it was an N+1 query problem, of course, on a RESTful API. And an example line, contestants equals wombats, reject the skinny ones, take the first 5. So what we want is of all the wombats that aren't skinny, take the first 5. Seems simple enough. But this is Ruby. Nothing is actually a variable with a value. It's all magic, magic all the way down. Wombats is a lazy reference to a RESTful get wombats call, okay, that returns a list of URIs to all of the wombats, okay, and then constructs a lazy reference to each of those. So you do one call, you come back, and you've got all these lazy references. And when you try, and the reject up there is just the normal reject that calls skinny on them. But it's a lazy ref. So calling skinny on them calls like get wombat 7, or in a variant, get wombat 42/skinny. It calls, to get the property. All very pure and restful and goodness and everything, because that is the thing for the object, right? So we go out and we get that object. And it looks really nice, and the code's really clear, and the performance sucks. It's horrible. And the reason is, if there's n wombats, okay, when we hit that reject, we're going to fetch every single wombat individually. And then throw out the vast majority of them after creating a bunch of garbage for the garbage collector. So let's see if you can scroll on up. Okay, if we reverse the calls here and say wombat's first 5, reject the skinny ones, the performance is great. The correction suffers a little bit because we get the first 5 wombats and then throw out the skinny ones. If all 5 of them are non-skinny, they're all good beefy wombats like you like, okay, then we're fine. But if all of them are skinny, we come back with none, even if all the rest of the thousands of wombats out there in the file are acceptable to us. The first 5 were skinny, and that's all we looked at. So one way to solve it that would actually solve it, give us good performance, and give us the behavior we want, we set the contestants to empty, W is 0, while we haven't gotten 5 and we haven't run out of wombat. We add wombat W to the contestants unless it's skinny. So the while loop thing, then we move on to the next wombat in any case. That code works. That code is fast. That code is rather obscure and hides the intent. And since that pattern occurs a whole bunch of times in the code, the chances of copy-pasting that, especially at midnight, and getting it right every time and not failing, to miss a thing, is, yeah.
So I have a question. If this code is hard to read and hides the intent, why can we read it? Why is it not replaced with underscores?
Because there's a better way to do it. Okay, so it's not nearly as clear, and since the same pattern occurs all over the code, we don't want to replicate. What we wanted to write was contestants equals wombats, lazily reject the skinny ones, give me the first 5. And have lazy reject not do a whole bunch of unneeded API calls.
How does the lazy reject only pull the first 5?
That's the question.
That's the bingo! All right, because it's written in magic code. And we tell it's magic because, as he pointed out, a lot of it's in underscore. to enumerable, lazy reject that does something that has the desired result. Okay, so and then
What was that great program a couple months ago that had the Hangman all built into it? And people just typed the key and it filled
Yeah,
in.
Matt wrote one.
Matt
Yeah.
did, and it was really great except for one thing. The Hangmans are actually very boring. And you guys don't enjoy them. I discovered this as we did this. What you enjoy is seeing me caper around here and fart around the and give you a hard time about capital E or lowercase e or stuff like that. This is street theater. This is actually not, this is performance art. This is not actually a technically based thing. It would be much more efficient, and the fun just drained out of it. It was really interesting because I loved that program. I could just sit there and we could all just sit here and then we're like, why are we all just sitting here? So I started coming back.
Caper on them.
Yeah, exactly. Caper on them.
It's more attainment than edu.
Yes.
Okay. Careful here. One time I ran off the edge of the whiteboard and broke on the wall. Okay, so there's the lines. So, does anybody know to the concept of Hangman? No, anybody need me to read the? We're doing ISO standard Hangman normal rules. So, okay.
Double blind.
Yeah. Does anybody? Would it double blind? That'd be fun if I didn't know the answer either. That would be fun. You do this scientifically. Double blind hangman here. Yeah.
How many hangmen are we allowed to hang?
We'll see how it goes. Yeah. You know what's funny? The other thing too is a hangman easier or harder if it has more underscores.
Easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ciphertext.
What?
Long
Exactly. The
ciphertext.
longer it is, if it's long enough, you just guess all. I'll take an ASCII A and ASCII B. Just go through the character set.
As long as the first two characters of the Hangman don't involve eval and TD.
Right.
Or IO dupe.
What was I going to say? Someday I should do one with the whole Unicode character set. There we go.
Yeah.
The pilot coup character. I
Yeah.
bet.
Okay. So does anybody want to call out their favorite 7-bit ASCII character excluding the control characters?
Oh.
Dot.
7-bit.
Dot? And by the way, I'd like to thank my sponsor Jacob Helwick, who provided the nicely colored.
In addition to Unicode Hangman, I'd like to request a Hangman involving the Bell character.
Audible Hangman, there we go. Okay. Yeah. An opening squiggly brace.
But that's already present.
Doesn't matter.
That
Oh, it doesn't matter?
There could
Okay.
be more of them.
This is
There
where we have
probably
the other
are.
color pen. As demonstrated.
Oh. Yeah, fair play.
Q, uppercase or lowercase?
It's on the end.
Well, it's alright. It's over. I didn't draw the whole thing there. Just what? N? Upper or lowercase?
E. Lowercase e.
Lowercase e.
New thing.
Oh. Wow.
Object.
Uppercase E, capital E.
Wait a second. Wait.
Uppercase
I may be spelling this wrong here. I'm afraid here, but I know you guys will still forgive me if I spell it wrong. Okay, what was somebody else got one?
Lowercase u.
Lowercase u.
Lowercase
Lowercase
n.
Lowercase what? M?
And the first letter of the
Lowercase.
Okay. You'd like to solve the puzzle? Who's going to solve the puzzle and give me all the characters?
I would assume it's innumerable.
It's not all the characters.
And then.
He's hoping that some of them will fill in the bottom.
Um,
That would be.
You're going to solve the whole puzzle, right? Pressure's mounting. Oh. Yeah. You know what's funny is I use exactly that same argument when I get stuck on a JavaScript. Oh, I'm a Ruby guy. So, okay, anybody? W. We've gotten a W. Oh, no, I guess.
No, it's not getting sticky.
Oh.
Um,
Can you write the letter?
What? Oh. Since I didn't ask him which one.
S. Lowercase s. Y. Lowercase.
I.
Upper lowercase. Lower D.
I don't get it.
Okay. So, oh, you know what?
No, this is the fun part.
I did do it wrong. I got suckered in by wanting to play with I'm going to solve the whole thing.
Oh, what?
Not enumerable, but enumerator. I knew there was something wrong there. Okay, so an enumerable is something that implements each that you can enumerate over. An enumerator is something that produces and yields values. Okay? It's a generator of them. Enumerables are always going to be, well, no, that's not even really true. You can't really say absolute things about Ruby, except for that one. That's the only absolute thing you can say about Ruby. But what we've got is we've got something here that's an array. If we call reject on it, the problem with the reject is it was producing a new array that had all the values. And that's not what we wanted. We wanted something that yielded us values. So what we're doing is lazy reject block doesn't do anything. It produces a new enumerator that, if called, say by first, if first is called on it, will call until it yields 5 times. And so the first. Okay. So when this first calls this returns an object, which is this enumerator. First 5 says, oh, you're an enumerator. Yield to me 5 times. And then I'm not going to call you anymore. So the new enumerator gives you the thing to yield to, which we yield to 5 times. We just keep calling each of the things on the array, and then that gets thrown away. So this essentially incorporates the thing where we had with the W that we're counting going through the block. That's essentially there in the each. Does that make sense? What?
That's so much easier to read.
Yeah. Well, the thing is this really ought to be.
Nose on my face.
Yeah, this thing really ought to be part of the library. Ought to be library code. because it's an efficiency. It's much more efficient, but you shouldn't have to be writing this over and over again. On the other hand, you could add this in your extensions. Do people do that anymore?
Yeah.
Ruby have their own extensions that are different, or does everybody just use Rails as my, here's my magic things I add?
No,
Good.
we have some.
Oh, I read
Good.
it.
Yeah. Good. Good. You should extend your own. I switched to using Blue at some point. I just realized that. Okay. So the blah 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 blah.
It's almost like you intentionally did syntax highlighting, but you wouldn't do that.
You're right. I wouldn't do that. You're right. I did it incorrectly, which is how everything that tries to syntax highlight Ruby does. So,
There we go.
okay. I'm curious. Yeah.
Well, you can finish your thought. but I have a
Okay. So
question.
I'm curious if everyone is just nodding quietly because you all understand this, or because nobody's really sure they understand it.
I'm gonna have to go home and study this.
Yeah, I need to go look it up.
What?
I need to look it up and see the API doc. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But
So, I thought I heard or I read somewhere that there's a lazy kind of enumerator in Ruby that's, or then Rail, maybe it's in Rail.
The Ruby 2 adds a lazy method to enumerable or enumerator, which lets you produce basically an object
This.
like this.
Right. And in fact, this is 193. In 193, there is a thing that almost does this, okay, which is to enum. So you can take something and say to enum. So my first thought is if you took your enumerable, if you have an array, and you write array to enum each, that gives you an enumerator.
Oh.
Okay, over that enumerable. Okay, and I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. And then it takes a parameter, so you can say, take 3. That gives you an enumerator over your enumerable that gives them to you 3 at a time.
Sure.
And I thought, oh, sweet. So all I need to do is write to enum, reject. That's how I make ampersands. And how does skinny spell? Yes, skinny. Okay. Do that. That doesn't work. So what happens is this block never gets called because it's confused. The first gets called.
Yeah.
So you wind up getting all of the wombats passed to take 5, or to the first 5. So this is the way you have to do it for anything that's going to take a block. And the lazy thing is actually a better. The Ruby 2, they finally got it a little bit more cleaned up. So, but I don't think anyone's using Ruby 2 at this point. Yeah.
So if you didn't have the LS block, this would be like the identity conversion from enumerable to enumerator, like.
Yes.
So if you give enumerator a block that just yields that you.
So basically, if I did a to enum, what I get back with nothing, it defaults to each. And then I would get back the same thing as if I didn't have this unless block on it. Okay, so it would give me all of the things in order. Just, it would give them to me one at a time. Yeah. So the other thing that you could do on this is you could add reject to enumerator. So enumerators would have a reject that was implicitly lazy.
Okay.
And then you could just do wombats.toenum.reject skinny, whatever, that would also work. So, okay. Oh, actually, one last thing. This isn't actually a vulnerability, I don't think, but here's a very bizarre I was going to do another Hangman on this, but it's not. It's too weird. Okay, I have some value. X is some Ruby value. 2 enum. Assuming you're on a real operating system. Okay, that returns an object that is an enumerator. That, if you ever call each on it, will shell out and do an ls, printing the result of the ls to standard output, and not call the block. So it's an object that it looks like something like an array. You've got something that takes an array and you want to play a trick on it. You say, yeah, here's my array. You pass it in, and as soon as it tries to call each on it, or do anything, array-ish like that, or numerate, probably actually if you called length on it, you get the same thing. It will instead go out and do an ls. Or, if you're a little bit more evil, whatever you decide to do instead of ls.
So you can monkey patch.
Well, you could stick in shell commands. Yeah, you could drop shell commands, like, you can make an object that, here's this object, if you poke it too hard, it's going to execute the shell command. Yeah, and I don't know why you would ever want that.
And it doesn't get triggered on things like length.
Okay, it doesn't?
Because
Okay.
enumerators don't respond to length.
Oh, right, because you'd have to 2A to length it.
Yeah, but each definitely.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, this is like, and actually I had previously come across effectively that in some code that was auto-generated by a code generator that I thought it should have failed. And it actually didn't fail, it just behaved really, really oddly. So, anyway, so that was Hangman.
Wait, Markus, I have one more question. Okay, this is something that's bothered me for a long time, and I've never found a good answer. So you said...
and you're asking me, okay, I'm touched.
Sometimes. So you said enumerable requires each to be defined.
Right.
Where can I find that sort of information? Like, I know that about enumerable, but I don't know that about any other module.
So the pickaxe book.
Pickaxe.
Also, there's like things. You can look at the source code. It's open source. Ruby is.
And it does.
What?
It does talk about that.
Yeah, if you're up for reading, depending on which one you're looking at. Actually, I think Rubinius has some pretty good documentation. But actually, do you know where a good source of information? Monty's looking. Do you know where a good source of information about the semantic assumptions?
Well, just the class definition on rubydoc.org.
Okay. Yeah.
That's usually where I go when I'm
Okay.
trying to find out like what methods are available and what other random stuff I can do.
Which is true. Yeah, rubydocs.org is the first step.
I didn't look it up for that specific.
Second, the pickaxe.
Second, the pickaxe. Yeah.
That seems to be pretty competitive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless you want to store this.
Well, the pickaxe, I basically believe that what they did is they poured over the source code.
Yeah.
The pickaxe is the source code rewritten. It's a English synopsis of the source code.
Yeah.
So if the documentation weren't crap, it'd be in the normal class documentation.
Right.
Sure. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
I mean, that's the thing about the official documentation. It can be
Usually it is,
depends on what you're looking for. Where's the
Does everyone know what the pickaxe is? I mean, I assume people have been around
That's a
for
good
a
question.
while, but yeah.
It's a Ruby book, and it's actually available online, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the old version is online.
Markus,
Yeah.
it's on the counter there.
Yes. I had to move the eraser to find a paper towel.
I'm sure you all know this, but if not, it's good to know. There.
Named for the cover.
Okay, so thank you, Markus.